transitioned Arini to public school, she did her final year in EC, and I think that added the most value for us, because if we didn't do that, I feel that the true sense of Montessori in the leadership year is the thirst for knowledge that comes from within. So I feel like that with Arini because of the leadership year. Wherever she goes, she has that within, like she enjoys learning. It's not like something that, she's trying to learn because she has to. In fact, the feedback from her current teachers is she's like a sponge. She wants to learn, she enjoys learning, and that, I think that's the true benefit of the leadership year,
In my case, I made a decision of keeping Alexander in his last year in EC, not focus on the academic part, but more on the emotional part, like maturity level. And for me, it was very important that he had that security that Anita is talking about. And he really flourished in his last year. It was such a wonderful feeling seeing him from the beginning to the end, seeing that kid that didn't want to work with the material and said no to everything, to seeing this kid that was helping other kids, and took a leadership position in the classroom. That for me was wonderful, wonderful. And I think it helped him a lot through the transition to public school. And in terms of academics, it's true that he was advanced to the level in public school, but that gave him more security in the transition. So it helped him out dealing with all the changes and new people, new teachers, new environment, etc. So I think it was a dual benefit for him.
Yeah, I was raised in a traditional school system in Mexico. And one of the things that you can see very clearly is that you will learn the material one way or another. But it's the emotional part that really separates one kid from another. And the way that they solve problems, they come in, it's amazing. It's something that I wish also I had when I was growing up, because the math I learned it. There is no question, no? But the emotional, unfortunately, it's left for us to learn either at work or you have to learn it elsewhere, and so that to me it's super important these days. Emotional intelligence is what leaders and a good fit on cultural aspect. It's just the growth of the country, I think, and in the world, what companies are looking for. You can be the most talented person, but if you don't have emotional intelligence, that comes a long way. Listening skills, empathy, all these things that they're learning here naturally without probably knowing the name, when they grow and they just kind of feel reflected on those emotions, will allow them to kind of be good.
Be good citizens.
Yes, exactly. On how to solve a problem, deal with a problem, kind of bring it to the table. Even to me, or mom as parents, I'm surprised more often than not when they bring me up. Almost like, wow, I don't get this from an adult sometimes, So yeah, that's really, really incredible.
If you could say the single most, the greatest value of completing the early childhood program, what would you say is the reason to do it?
For me, I think I'd say the confidence and the belief in self that my daughter got from it would be one of the top things. It's just interesting because you start every cycle and you're the youngest kid. You go from being the big kid to the little kid again, and so you see that doubt come in a little bit, like, oh, these other kids are doing better than me, and but then it goes away really fast. They adjust and they get used to it. For us, I just think there's a level of confidence that we see where it's, I can do this and I'll figure it out, and I feel good about that. and also the confidence to be able to stand up and be a leader in a group was really good. So I think there's just a quiet confidence that I like that comes from it.
For me, it will be confidence, also self-image, like self-knowledge of yourself. And also, I think it's very important to be the older kid and being able to help others. Like, you learn to be kind at school, which is something that you don't find regularly in normal schools, in regular schools. And so you learn this at home, be kind. I'm always telling my kids, be kind. But in the classroom, when you're the older kid, you have to teach the youngest sometimes material, sometimes you need to help them doing things. And I think that's very important because they do discover they can be kind and how good it feels to be kind to others. So I think that is an important part of the last year, being the oldest and being the one to just help others that need help. It's a life lesson, I think.
If I could say a word, it would be how to be nimble, right? I mean, because then exactly that's what happens. Life, you can never be on top all the time. And life shows you that, a way or another. And when you go through the cycle where you know you're gonna be the youngest, the middle, and the oldest, I mean, that's the life experience, right? It's the cycle. And then you come to the elementary and then you're the youngest again. Even though you were at the top at that time, you come on elementary and you're like, oh my goodness, there is so much I need to learn and from others. And so that nimbleness is just super, super important, I think, in a kid, in an adult, again, on any person. To me, that's something that they learn without probably knowing they're learning it, which is the most amazing part.
Since they start like at age 3 and they're still looking up to working with kids who are 6 years old, and then every year they see that transition, they're looking at role models and they want to be like, they obviously are observing and absorbing things. But the true mark of the leadership year is being able to teach what you've learned. And I think it builds them up to that confidence and self-esteem. You really have to have a lot of self-esteem to be able to let go of things and be able to teach someone so much younger than you.
Is it hard? Would it be harder for my child to transition into first grade not having made the friends in kindergarten? And the next one is, if my child is one of the few older children in the classroom, are they at a disadvantage because they're working with children who are younger than them, kind of?
I have the same concern because when you start at kinder, you have like a set of friends that you move with, but it's not the case because every year they're put in different classes. They're not necessarily in the same class.
My son was born in September, so he was after the cutting, just a few days after the cutting period. So what I did was put him in kindergarten, actually. I didn't put him in first grade. He is the oldest of his classroom, but he doesn't have any issues because of that. On the contrary, I would say it gave him more confidence, socially speaking. So I think because he had the leadership year in Montessori, and he learned all these skills about being the oldest and help other classmates, he didn't have any issues at all. I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was the best. I agree with Anita. It was the best decision we could have made.
Once you have your foundation, academically, sky is the limit. They'll get it. It's the other things that
Absolutely.
I think, especially in this world right now, like there's so many emotional things that you deal with, and you need to know how to deal with those. And I think if they have that, that's half your thing solved. Yeah.